Hello friends all over the world. Good evening from the great city of Houston on this 16th day of May 2020. We are already in the second half of May of 2020 and today is Saturday the 16th of May and my name is Clifford Iroanya. I am coming to bring you last two videos before the Constitutional Force Majeure, and this is the first of the last two videos I will make before the Constitutional Force Majeure. And the title of today's presentation is Why the Constitution? Why the focus on the Constitution? Now, for those who are from the Igbo speaking area of the British contraption called Nigeria, you will recall that there is an Igbo proverb that says that where a child is crying and pointing at, if the father is not there, definitely the mother is there. In other words, for the Lower Niger Congress, for the Oduduwas, for the Middle Belt region to continue to point at the Constitution, then it means that something definitely important or tangible about the Constitution. And without wasting much of your time, let me go to read to you what I downloaded from the internet so that you know these are not my words, directly from the internet about the definition of a constitution. It says, a constitution is a body of fundamental principles or established precedents according to which a state or other organization is acknowledged to be governed. Another definition says, a constitution is a set of rules that guides how a country, a state, or other political organization work. The constitution may tell what the branches of the government are, what powers they have, and how they work. It may also state the rights of citizens. So in other words, the Constitution is a governance structure. Etymologically speaking, it takes the constituent to constitute the Constitution. Let me break it down. When you talk about Constitution is a product of a process. In other words, something will start, go through some processes, and then comes out as a product. It takes the constituent to constitute, to come together, deliberate, and then come out with a document which is called the Constitution. It's just like where you have food. Food is a product of a process. You have the ingredients, and then you put the ingredients in the required proportion, pass it through a heating process, and then it comes out as a food. So that is the same thing with a constitution. A constitution has, in most cases, a constitution has three parts. It has the preamble, it has the main body, and then it has what is called the schedule. The main body of the constitution can be divided into what they call chapters, or it could be into articles and order. And so you have that very structure, the preamble, the main body, and the very last part, which is the schedule, where further explanations are made. What is the importance or implication of a constitution? Let's just take it one after the other. A constitution defines and names the union, and it also gives it legitimacy, because it is in that constitution that you will see the name of the country or the nation. It is the constitution that will say that this document is legitimate and it is binding. So that is one point we must know. Another point we must know is that the Constitution empowers the political office holders. It is the Constitution that decides what you have as the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. For example, the fraudulent 1999 Constitution in section 147, subsection 3, is saying that there shall be one minister for each state of Nigeria. And by virtue of section 3 of Nigeria Constitution, there are 36 states, meaning that by default, ab initio, Nigeria must have 36 ministers. There is no question to that. And then you have other sections too that talks about there should be a state governor. That means there must be a state governor for each state, meaning 36 governors all in all. Now, it is the Constitution that also prescribes the type of government. Is it going to be a presidential system of government? Is it going to be the prime ministerial system of government? Is it going to be a monarchical system? Is it going to be a theocratic system? Or is it going to be also, in terms of party, is it going to be a one-party system or a multi-party system? These are all encapsulated in the Constitution. Another thing that we must know about the Constitution is that the Constitution also stipulates how people will be elected under what condition. For instance, in the notorious section 134, subsection 2 of Nigeria's fraudulent constitution, it tells you how a president can be declared, a presidential candidate can be declared a winner. Also, in section 179, subsection 2, it talks about the governor, how a candidate can be elected as a governor. Now, the Constitution also determines who controls and owns the resources of a country. Section 4, subsection 2 of the fraudulent constitution is there. And then Schedule 2, Part 1 listed 68 items that exclusively belong to the federal government. I am taking my time to state all these things so that we should know the importance of a constitution. Because my second video is going to be on the title, Why Constitutional Force Majeure? Because first of all, you need to know why a constitution before you go to know why a constitutional force majeure. The other thing we need to talk about is, or the implication of a constitution, is that the constitution determines the security and armed forces of a country. For instance, in the same fraudulent constitution of Nigeria, section 214 all the way to section 218 is where you will find things about the armed forces and security of Nigeria. The Constitution also determines how resources are allocated. For instance, in section 162, subsections 1 and 2 of the Nigerian fraudulent constitution, it talks about what is called the federation account. It is there where it gave conditions on how that federation account will be shared, irrespective of the place the money was generated from. So it is very important we know this. And then the last but not the least, which I will use some prominent citizens of the Middle Belt, the Southwest, the Lower Niger area as example. And what am I talking about? The constitution of a country, especially where you have different tribes. Let me use Nigeria as a very good example. Apart from your tribe and your community, your identity is controlled and determined by the Constitution. Let me repeat that again, or find a way to rephrase it. Who you are, excluding your tribe and your community, is determined by the Constitution. Your identity is determined by the Constitution and is bound to change as the Constitution changes. The only thing that does not change is your tribe and your community. Let me give an example. Please try to zoom in on this. I'm sure those of you watching will know who this face is, or this person is. This man was born in 1938. So he was born 22 years before the independence of Nigeria. As at 1963, when Nigeria had their first republic, this man will come out and introduce himself in terms of his identity. He will say, my name is Theophilus Danjuma. I come from Takum in northern region of Nigeria. 1963. In 1980 or 1979, he will come to introduce himself as Theophilus Danjuma, a Jukun from Takum in Gongola State. Are you seeing the difference? You're noticing the difference? Now, in 1999, I've talked about 1979 Constitution. 1999 Constitution, he will come and introduce himself as Theophilus Danjuma, a Jukun from Takum in Taraba State. You can see the progression. Northern region, Gongola State, and now Taraba State. Let me bring another popular person that we know. Many people will know this face. This is Pastor Enoch Adeboye. Enoch Adeboye was born 1942. So he was born 18 years before the independence. As at 1963, he will introduce himself as Enoch Adeboye, a Yoruba from Ifewara in Western region. By 1979, he will introduce himself as Enoch Adeboye, a Yoruba from Ifewara in Oyo State. By 1999, he will introduce himself as Enoch Adeboye, a Yoruba from Ifewara in Osun State. You can see the progression. The Constitution determines your identity other than your tribe and your community. This is another example. I'm sure we all know this. This man is Adam Oshomole. Adam Oshomole was born 1952, April 4. So he was born 8 years before the independence. In 1963, Adam Oshomole will introduce himself as Adam Oshomole, an Esakoman from Iyamo in the Midwestern region. In 1979, he will introduce himself as Adam Oshomole, an Esakoman from Iyamo in Bendel State. And in 1999 Constitution, following Section 3 of 1999 Constitution, he will introduce himself as Adam Oshomole, an Esakoman from Iyamo in Edo State. You can see the progression. I have two more. We know this man, a wonderful man, a brilliant lawyer. His name is Chief John Nyanwodo, also born 1952, 80 years before independence. He will introduce himself in 1963 as Chief John Nyanwodo, or John may not be a chief then, but John Nyanwodo from Uke in Eastern Region. In 1979, he will introduce himself as John Nyanwodo from Uke in Anambra State. And in 1999, according to the Fraudulent Constitution, Section 3, he will introduce himself as John Nyanwodo from Uke in Enugu State. And the last one, we all know this man. This is Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. He was born 3 years before the independence of Nigeria in 1950s. He was born in 1957. In 1963, when he will be about 8 years old, he will introduce himself as Goodluck Jonathan from Oboya, an Ijoman from Oboya in Eastern Region. In 1979, he will introduce himself as Goodluck Jonathan, an Ijoman from Oboya in Rivers State. And in 1999, he will introduce himself as Goodluck Jonathan, an Ijoman from Oboya in Bayelsa State. So my dear people, you can see the progression. So when I say that the Constitution determines your identity outside of your tribe and your community, so it is very important. And these states that I mentioned were never created with our consent. They were all made through military decrees, not even through a constitution. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how is a constitution made? A constitution has 2 steps. And you must finish step 1 before you go to step 2. You cannot jump step 1 and go to step 2. And what is step 1? Step 1 is that the constituent, remember, it takes the constituent to constitute the constitution. It's the constituent that must constitute the constitution. So step 1 is that the constituent must first of all agree to the union. The constituent must agree to the union. That is a standard procedure. If that step 1 is not achieved, you cannot go to step 2. And that is why we are saying, that is why when you look at the various constitutions, it says, we the people solemnly agree to live. I will read. I have 5 constitutions here that I'm going to read. But let me make this very explanation first. So step number 1, the constituent must agree to a union. There must be that agreement to be in a union, first of all. And then when they have agreed to to be in a union, the next thing is to agree on those things that make up the Constitution, what we call the provisions, the schedules, and every other thing. And that is why, when you look at the Constitution, it has that language that talks about we the people agree to this union and then enact this Constitution and we give it unto ourselves. So it is very important we know this, because when we go into why the Constitutional Force Majeure, you will now remember the things I said about how a constitution is made, the conditions under which a constitution is made, the two steps of a constitution: agreeing to a union and then agreeing to the rules that will guide the constituents in that union. Let me go show you the example. But before I do that, let me make this one more point. I think I've already, who makes the constitution? That's another point. I already said that. Constitution is made by the constituent. That's why etymologically you have the constituent constituting the constitution. And a constitution must be put into vote. It must be voted for by the people, by the same constituent, and approved before it becomes legitimate. I'm going to round up, but let me go through some of the constitution I was able to pull out. First of all, I was able to extract some pages of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. Let me read some captions here so that I will drive home the point. He said, whereas by the Constitutive Assembly Law 1991, the provision now Defense Council set up a consultative assembly to prepare a draft constitution for the administration of Ghana. It goes again, it says, whereas the said draft constitution was submitted to a national referendum held throughout Ghana on the 28th of April 1992. Let me repeat that because it's very important. When I will be going into the second video, you will remember what I just read now. He said, whereas the said draft constitution was submitted to a national referendum held throughout Ghana on the 28th of April 1992. And whereas, this is the funny part, or the fun part, and whereas the people of Ghana approved the said constitution for the administration of Ghana to come into force on 7th day of January 1993. It says, whereas the people of Ghana approved the said constitution, it did not say military, it did not say Abdul Salam Abubakar, it said the people of Ghana. Very important. Now, let me still go ahead and look at the constitution. Like I said, a constitution has the preamble, it has the main body, and it has the schedule. Now, look at the preamble here. It says, we the people of Ghana, in exercise of our natural and inalienable right to establish a framework of government. You see that? We, the people of Ghana, meaning they agreed. It goes further to say, the principle that all powers of government spring from the sovereign will of the people. That means the people willingly agreed to form the union. And this is the second part of every constitution. Do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this constitution, which is that step 2. Step 1, first of all, they have to agree to a union. And then step 2, they now adopt, give, and enact to themselves the constitution. If you cannot agree to a union, then you cannot adopt, enact, or make a constitution to yourself. That is the Constitution of Ghana. This is the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. Here again it says, we the people of South Africa believe that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, united in our diversity. That means there is already a belief that they are forming a union. And then he goes ahead to say, we therefore, through our freely elected representatives, listen, I don't know who they elected to make a constitution they call 1999, but read this. It says, we therefore, through our freely elected representatives, adopt this constitution as the supreme law of the republic. I want everybody listening to me to mark these words, because when I go to the second video, you will understand the second presentation, you will understand why Constitutional Force Majeure, Republic of South Africa. Here is the Constitution of India. It goes this way. It says, we the people of India. See that again? We the people of India, having solemnly resolved to constitute India. You see, did you hear that? They have solemnly resolved. That means they willingly agreed to constitute India. That means form the union called India. And then he said, in our Constituent Assembly this day, this 6th day of November 1949, do hereby adopt, enact, and give to ourselves this constitution. So first of all, they willingly resolve to constitute India. That means there is that willingness to form a union before they now decided to enact, to give, and to adopt for themselves the Constitution. Constitution of India. This is the Constitution of the United States of America. And it says, we the people of the United States, you see the common link, we the people of the United States, in order to form a perfect union. And you see that key word again, union. He said, do ordain and establish this constitution for the United States of America. So first of all, there was we, the people of the United States, and then there was that hunger to form a perfect union before they begin to ordain and establish a constitution for themselves. Very important. We know that. Finally, I have here the Constitution of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. And it goes this way. We, the nations, nationalities, and peoples of Ethiopia. Very interesting. It says we, the nations, nationalities, and peoples of Ethiopia. So you have the constituent now being mentioned here. Strongly committed in full and free exercise of our right to self-determination, to building a political community founded on the rule of law. See that? A political community. So the nation, nationalities, and people, they agreed strongly and they are committed to build a community, political community founded on the rule of law. It goes further to say, convinced that to live as one economic community is necessary. You see that? They are convinced that to live as one economic, that's one union, that it is necessary. And then he say, having therefore adopted on 8 December 1994 this constitution through representatives we have duly elected for this purpose. I don't know if somebody is listening to me. He said, through representative duly elected for this purpose, they have now decided to give themselves this constitution. So, first of all, you have the nation, the nationalities and people, strongly committed to form a union and convinced that they should have that union, now have this constitution which they made through their duly elected representatives. Therefore, good people of the world, we have seen that the Constitution is very important. The Constitution has a preamble, it has the main body, and it has the schedules. And that preamble has three sections. We the people. And then that they are convinced there's a union, and then they will go ahead and make the constitution themselves. And when a constitution is made, it is put to vote and voted for before it becomes legal. Therefore, in conclusion, I want everybody who listens to or watch this video to note the most important element of this presentation, and that is the steps to making a constitution. There must be a union. There must be agreement to form a union. And it is after that agreement to form a union is reached that you can now go to the next step to begin to write the kind of governance, policies, or agreement, or structures, or whatever that you use to govern yourself. And there are implications for a constitution. It defines the union, it gives power to political office holders, it determines ownership of structures, our resources, it determines security, it determines even your identity, where for you to be identified. Apart from your tribe and your community, your identity is defined and controlled by the Constitution. And that is why, if a constitution is not properly made, if it is illegitimate, if it is fraudulently made, like you have in that of 1999 Constitution, then we begin to talk of Constitutional Force Majeure, which is my second presentation. I thank you very much for listening, and please share this message, and may God bless you as you do so. Thank you, and bye-bye for now.